And we're live. All right, everybody, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the intro. This is the PEO Speedwagon podcast. Welcome, Wagoneers, to Season 2. Glad to have you here. I'm your host, Rick, with the PEO Speedwagon, with PEOMG, and this is our founder and president, Ryan Shapiro. Ryan, glad to have you.
Yeah, it's awesome to be back. It was kind of interesting to take a little break from doing this. I actually missed it, kind of some of the conversation and just preparing for this type of stuff is really thought-provoking and kind of helps us in a lot of the things that we do. And so I was excited to get back, and we got a bunch of new stuff this season.
Yeah, really excited for it. And we heard a lot of feedback from the first season and are ready to kind of build upon it and have a great one. And so, yeah, really looking forward to Season 2. A lot of creative things we're going to get into. What are you most excited about?
Yeah. We listened to a lot of the feedback. The most prominent feedback that we didn't listen to was stop.
Yeah.
So that we elected to ignore. No, but kidding aside, people really enjoyed a lot of the content. They kind of wanted more of it. And, some more like segmentation of the podcast and ways that people can use it. We're excited about doing that. We're going to do some things this season with having some guests, some kind of heavy hitters in the PEO space that we've identified and are going to be on the show over the course of the next 10, 11 episodes. And should be fun, bringing different perspectives outside of just what I've been able to bring to you. So as people kind of witness your journey of learning the PEO industry, you're also going to get to learn from some different voices. So that's going to be really cool, and it'll be some faces that people, I think, recognize.
Yeah, you're not saying I've learned everything I could learn from you, right?
You've not learned everything you could learn from me, and I don't have the ability to teach you everything you could learn. So I think that'll be fun, and we're going to do some different segments. Have a little more fun, a little more goofiness, and also continue where we can to poke fun at the industry because it deserves it.
Yes, it certainly deserves it. And, we'll get out and we'll kind of explore things a little bit, maybe do some on-site interviews, do sort of PEOs out in the wild and us out actually doing our thing. But speaking of segments, let's dive into kind of one of the first segments we want to start doing, which is more updates of the PEO industry and just some things that are going on. Yeah. And so I'm going to run through a couple items that I think are relevant that have happened this year in the PEO space and the space of employment law. Maybe get some of Ryan's opinions on it as we go through it and just let you guys know some things to keep in mind. So one of the main changes, it had to do with employees versus independent contractor status. And so it's a new rule by the DOL. So March of 2024, they issued this new rule that was clarifying worker classifications. So essentially the rule, it's going to use a multi-factor approach that is going to look at the control, the investment, and then the nature of the work of these employees and then how you need to classify them. Essentially, you're going to have to go and review and do all of the proper worker classification to avoid any legal or financial penalties around how you have them categorized. And so this went into effect again in March, pretty recently. The other one was the overtime rule that came into effect. And so this rule was a raise to salaries, the salary threshold for overtime eligibility for employees. So employees earning less than $55,000 annually will now be eligible for overtime pay. This means that some changes to the business need to be updated in terms of the compensation plans and the payroll systems to maintain compliance with those different things. And so it might be time to review some different payroll structures that you have set up with the employees and what they're being paid.
I'm gonna kind of want to jump in there because Saturday night I had dinner with two of our clients, so two separate clients, same dinner, and what was cool was from both of their perspectives, they were actually, we placed them and recommended them with separate PEOs, but both of their PEOs were incredibly proactive on this, and they were both unbelievably thankful. These are two incredibly savvy individuals. One is a CFO of a really good size organization, and then the other is a COO of a rapidly growing behavioral health group here in St. Louis, and they both kind of exclaimed that they would have had no idea, like what was going on in their business, the focus of the growth of the other one, just the day-to-day that it takes to manage the finances of the other, and HR rolls up under that individual. They just did not have their antenna up for this, and had their respective PEOs, two independent PEOs, not been on the ball and telling them that would have been wildly disruptive to this July 1st transition they had to make. And they would have been behind the 8 ball on the much bigger and much riskier environment that comes in December if you don't get all this stuff structured. So they were highly effusive about how much they appreciated that. They saw immediate value of what the PEO could do because they weren't looking at this on their own. And it's cool that, that's a way that an organization can rest better at night, knowing that these things are going to be rushed to them as these kind of landmark changes are occurring. And they also have partners on how to prepare for bigger ones. Mm-hmm. The second step that comes on this overtime piece in December.
Yeah, and that's a huge point. Whether you're PEO, looking or curious, or you're with a PEO, there's some things that you might need to do. And so if you're already working with a PEO, they've probably contacted you well in advance about the changes that are going to be happening. Yeah. If you're not with a PEO, maybe go seek legal advice. You might need to reevaluate the compensation plans that you're with, or potentially do some kind of a compliance audit to make sure that you are falling in line. But again, if you're with a PEO, that's probably most likely taken care of. You can give them a call if you want to check in and see how it's going.
Yeah, it was a huge one. For one, they had just a handful of people they had to stair step up, just a few $500,000. But for the other, they had a good chunk of employees that needed substantial lift, and so they had to get in a room, figure out the budget, and now they've got another 4 safe months to prepare for the December one, which is going to be really important. So they've called meetings for their board to talk about this, the implications, because this larger organization, it's a substantial amount of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard one of the things where people have to consider now is which side of the fence the employees fall on when it comes to compensation.
Correct.
And so where you kind of want to make sure what bucket they fall into, and then factor in things like bonus pay or overtime, right, that then could push them over those limits, and then how that factors in. And so it can get a little tricky. Yeah. Certainly makes sense they're going to get together and discuss it.
Yeah, big time.
Ryan, you've got a nice light pink blazer on today, which makes sense because we're in the heat of summer. It's July. Well, actually, it's like 70 degrees here in St. Louis.
It's a nice day today.
Yeah, we're getting right into the heat of summer. But I wanted to ask you, PEOs and the summer season. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, when it comes to maybe being a PEO rep or somebody who's engaged with a PEO.
Sure.
Like, what is going through their head around this time or halfway through the year? What should they be thinking about?
Yeah. One thing is they don't want to be wearing sport coats in the middle of the summer. So just full transparency, I had no designs on wearing this until Rick walked into the studio today fully dressed for success, I guess. And so now this is what happened. So let's not do this again. In the summer, though, summer's a really interesting time in the world of PEO because it is this like calm before the storm. People in the PEO industry, people who are prospective customers of the PEO industry, they recognize that the fall selling season, the way that organizations like to make decisions that line up really nicely with the end of the year, the large propensity for existing renewals to fall in the last couple months of the year and January 1, that there's a lot of momentum and action that occurs in the world of professional employer organizations kind of from September on. So the months of June, July, August tend to be a little bit slower, but are incredibly critical because you are starting to build pipeline and awareness with your customers that these conversations need to come. If you're going to consider migrating to a PEO, if you're going to consider restructuring something within your PEO relationship from one to the other, that this time is going to be upon you and it's going to come fast and it's going to be important because you're also dealing with all your other year-end junk. So PEO reps really can't take the summer vacation that you would think they would just because they're not closing quite as many new customers and onboarding them into first payroll because they really have to be loading up. And, for many years we talked about fall campaign, they call it Insperity, fall selling season at other PEOs. Like that actually really starts in June and carries forward through the end of the year. So there's a deep focus of that. I think it's also an opportunity to really sharpen your skills because there are less what I describe introductory meetings during the days. Like there isn't quite as much activity going on in that. So this is a really good window of time to do education, to go through coaching and development with your leaders and really just sharpen the saw, if you will, on the way to being prepared for that really critical fall selling season.
Is that some foreshadowing that we're going to start doing more training?
That is some foreshadowing.
Ring.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
But really important. But we all just kind of crossed over from June to July, and in June, one of the larger PEOs, you saw a lot of activity there because they renew all their clients on June 1 in ADP. And so this is kind of now we've entered that little buffer zone for here about 15, 20 days, and then 4th of July and the way it's structured this year, people have really kind of got to manage the calendar right now and know what that's going to translate to.
So that's the perspective, I guess, for a PEO rep to get in the right mindset. Yep. But from the perspective of the business owner, right? Sometimes they're sitting there, things are hectic during the summer, and they're saying, this is something we know we're going to do next, we're going to implement next year. Yep. Why wouldn't they just wait till November, December to proactively start this surge?
Yeah. It's a good question, because it's too late at that point. And that's really on the sales rep of a PEO to educate that business owner, business leader, that they can't wait that long. Two reasons. We've talked about it on the show previously, a pretty popular segment about how to space gathering data against the renewal for your client and the PEO relationships, optimal environment. That won't happen if you wait till October, November, right? Especially with all those December 1 and January 1 renewals. You will not optimize the situation for your client if you wait that long. And it is their propensity, because they've got a full, business, employees, clients, all these things to nurture and manage, to kick the can down the road till the absolute last moment. And you've really kind of got to educate and make them aware that if you wait that long, two things will occur. One, you'll be in a mad dash at the end of the year if you want to do something like this. Two, I will be very limited in what I can do from a pricing perspective with you. Yes, I can lower admin. That tends to happen at the end of the year, just in the world of PEO, just like in any other selling model. But from the medical piece of it, the insurance element that can be a heavy lever as to where the costs fall, they will be very limited, because the PEOs and their underwriting teams, they start looking at renewals kind of around October, and anything past that point closer to December 1. And at that point in time, you will not be able to maximize the savings of the insurance vehicle that a PEO has. And so the only way a prospective customer, business owner, business leader is going to know that is if you tell them. And you've got to scream at the top of your lungs sometimes to break in, because they've got a lot of crap going on.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I wanted to ask you, because we've been in this remote or dispersed workforce environment for the last few years predominantly now. And one thing that's really changed a lot is the impact that summer can have and on a corporation, and having all the kids home from school. Yeah. And it actually ends up putting more strain than it did in the past potentially on the workers in those organizations. Yeah. And so I was curious what your thoughts are on organizations that are in the middle of summer, they've got all the kids home from school, they're feeling the pressure of it. And really just maybe ways a PEO can help in those scenarios, and also what pressures they're feeling.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. As I was sharing with you, I read a study recently done by some HR leadership that 41% of employees are really struggling in the summer when the kids are home. Now, obviously, if you don't have children, that's not the case, but due to the kids and their needs and the larger workforce now having some of it shifted into a remote workforce, they're in the home, the demands and the pulls are really challenging, and those pulls are translating into burnout. Not necessarily just burnout of the job, but just burnout in general. And so employees are really seeking back to their HR departments and business leaders to say, what can you do to help me, right? It's not that, because some companies don't offer an in-office environment, so it is only remote. So that's a scenario where that's a business decision that was made to manage costs, be more flexible with employees, but it does have its unintended consequences. And so the summer kind of presents that. So working with your HR team, engagement teams, employee resources groups, what have you, are really good tools. In the small business space, that's sometimes hard to have. So PEOs can be a great tool for that, but companies can handle it on their own if they're listening to their employees and hearing what those struggles are. So that's a big challenge. It's then you've got things like summer Fridays have become very popular. We kind of do summer Fridays at PEOMG, and so we've tried to address what the summer looks like by positioning certain types of work into certain parts of the week. Going back again to calendar management and other things. because the summer is not any easier just because the weather's nice and it's warmed up. It actually presents a lot of challenges. And so collaborating with your employees on how to best navigate, this 2.5 month period from kind of Memorial Day till middle part of August is really important.
Yeah, and you add in things like, the cost of daycares or the cost of like summer camps, things like that are through the roof.
Yep.
And it can just be more difficult. Not to mention that this is the vacation time for a lot of people. As they're trying to get out of town for a week or so, particularly this week with the 4th of July coming up. And so, it's going to be less people working or in the office, taking some time off, but also dealing with the kids. And so that puts a strain on the company.
Yeah, it's tough for companies, small and big. Productivity and burnout, like you're trying to balance against both. Like we want our people working hard. We have objectives or deadlines or projects to complete that run over the summer. But at the same time, I don't want my folks burning out during this time. So having a mind and a thought process around how to understand how your people are feeling is probably the most important way, because then your people at least know that you care and that there's empathy there for what they're perhaps having to navigate. And then you can apply resources or structures that would help them.
Wow. So there's a cure for the summertime blues and it's a PEO.
No,
that's not. Okay.
It could be for some folks. Not always, though. Sometimes it's just listening.
Yeah, that's fair. Listening to the employees, what they need, and then making sure they get that.
Yeah, but no, I mean, but the summer's also a great time, right? I mean, so get the vacations, everything else. I think at the end of the day, if an organization is planning for, just like in the world of PEO, if PEO reps are planning to accomplish certain things in the summer so they're well positioned in the fall, companies are just like that, or they can be.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, between the changes during the summertime for an organization and then all the change going on this year with employment law and the launch of the new season 2 of the PEO Speedwagon podcast, there's a lot of change going on in the industry. And so thanks you guys for tuning in and listening and definitely listen some more to find out some more things going on in this space. Ryan, send us out.
Couldn't be more excited for episode 1 of season 2 to be in the bag. We're excited about the stuff we're going to do. We're going to have a LinkedIn page where people can follow us there and content, and there might be swag coming.
Yeah,
I heard.
And some nice crispy audio.
Yes. Mics.
They can tell. They can tell.
Yeah, they can tell. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm sure we'll get feedback. So season 2 has begun. We're glad you could join us.
Thanks, everybody.